Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. The title is Collective Self-Expressionism and Trans-Planetary Souls. And I wanted to speak about an idea which has to do with where imagination is happening and the potential of life. I would like to begin by saying that we as creatures, and of course I'm just one person for now, just one out of one person in a universe of a billion trillion stars saying this, but I consider that human life is self-expressionism, and I feel that everything a person wants, it has to do with the way they're existing to themselves. And if we have self-expression, we also have the opposite, which I would say is the expression of the world. That means in this world, in this reality as a human being, either the self moves the world, or the world moves the self. And you can see the extremes of this. That means if a person does nothing, the world moves them. Just like leaving, food outside, if the food is left there, the environment takes it. It becomes the environment programs over it or through it. So it's the same that if we as human beings don't put an effort to be a self, we become the world, in a sense, And in many traditions, for example in Taoism, action through inaction was advised. That means there's certain strategies where it's like when you're not a self, you can't suffer in the world, and you kind of go with the flow of the world. That can be the case, but it could also be that the person can use their self. I often make this argument that it's as if we've woken up in the middle of like a movement, or let me say it like this: we've woken up with a wrench in our hand, and there's an engine, and the world's like an engine. So this wrench in our hand has to be used, and so we can say self-expressionism is a way we use our humanity. And really, if you look at just people in the world, like just go outside and see people, you're like, why are people moving? Why is a creature moving on this planet? There's algorithms, or I wouldn't say, I'll say it this way, stories are like code that program human beings. Now stories can come from you, or it can come from the other, or it can come from the past and whatnot. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is that to be human is to express the self, and to express the self is to, in some sense, see yourself in control. And you know what's remarkable? Because we all start from an inner realm, we are left to self-expression. That means when a person sees another person, before they know who they are, even before they know their mind, you're receiving the person's impression of the other is their own self-expression. So we have individuals expressing themselves as a self, and collective self-expressionism would be how are 8 billion human beings, units of humanity, expressing. There was a time I would say it was okay to just express the self as an object. Think of like gorillas trying to, show which is more power. Imagine the alpha gorilla, right? An expressionism, a self-expression of just the outer self, the object-based self. As language developed, as culture matured, as society stood up from seats they never knew they were on, we are expressing ourselves not as just an object anymore, but as something more. It's like, people are looking for personality. So, the interesting thing is that 8 billion objects are subjectively expressing themselves, and the subject of one person or the subject of a group, it is the same. That means it doesn't matter if a person calls a person Bob or calls a group Bob. You know what I mean? Like it's as if it's just name, it's just symbolism to some degree. We're projecting ourselves as linguistic entities, and that's the kind of I'm just trying to paint the picture that it's like the self-expressionism has come on to a subject level. But when we look at subjects, because they're not objects, the difference between a collective subject and an individual object is technically non-existent. Subjects have no edge, but objects do. The subject only has an edge if the object does, if it's correlated to the object. Like as if I look at this object in front of me, it's a cup of coffee. So the object is the edge of the subject. Like when I think about like the subject cup, it's like limited to the object. But if I was to think about, okay, who named this cup, and then I think about who named this planet, and then I think about who named my free will, It's like I come to a point where I see, even though I am existing as an object, I am not experiencing an object as an object. So I do not deny with the materialistic view that this is a body. It's just that, and this is the body of an animal. But it's just that this animal is doing something no other animal is doing. Just the fact that a temporary creature created the notion of eternity for itself is not, it's off-planetary. We're 8 billion individual units of self-expressionism, you can say, in a manner of speech. So we are 8 billion self-expressives. Now, this self-expression can be oblivious to the outer realms, You can, like a human being can exist on this planet totally forgetting everything, you know? You can kind of Tarzan it out, whether in the inner realms or the outer realms. So that means it's very easy in this world to forget everything and to just be content with what the person sees, right? Just be content with their inner realms. But the joy of life is actually when the inner realms can express in the outer realms. You know, human beings feel alive when you can say there's an energetic, it's from when energy from within goes without. Right? When something goes from within, it can't be trusted because it's not self-generated. You know, just like the lion has to kill its prey, it's not like the coyote or the hyena that just eats whatever that's there. What comes from within is trusted. Like, you have no other option. It's like, if the person who generates even the expressionism of the moment doesn't trust the expression, then the expression's like, nobody trusts me. Right now, self-expressionism doesn't have the wisdom that self and world are inseparable. The species will one day get there and would probably be like, yo, Mr.Within told us so. The inseparability of the individual and the collective. You'll realize that it's not imagination that is not real, it is reality that was imagined. It's overlay, literally the world, one singular event of an object-based existence is being subjectively witnessed. So existentially singular event, singular, you can say we're all existing, you know. Everybody has successfully been existing in different kinds of ways. Like survival is different. Existence, I'm saying from a philosophical value of like, I'm existing as much as like that object there or that tree outside. Like existential wise, everybody's existing, right? It's just about the type of experience we have of our own existence and the existence of the world. Because of language, the existence of ourself and the existence of the world are kept separate, right? So we have no choice. It's as if we start off from the inner realms, as if the perfect metaphor, excuse me, that I came up for this in one of my talks was, imagine the planet was made of cheese and asteroids were hitting the planet somehow, not meteors or asteroids, whatever, they weren't getting melted by the atmosphere, and they just went into the planet, and this planet was made like cheese, so they made a hole. So each meteor that hit the earth kind of made a hole. Now imagine that meteor was consciousness, and it's a suggestion that consciousness has to first become conscious of how it entered the system, then step out of the system. That means it's like the person after finding their truth, it's like, good for you, you found truth. Now wonder about what your truth has not seen. We have no, again, I have to re-emphasize, we start off from the inner realms. That means anybody who believes what they see is the only thing that's there in the world, you're still in your inner realms. When you truly come to the outer realms, you realize objects can be looked at from multiple views. So truth is not subjective, truth cannot be set in stone. So collective self-expressionism is how 8 billion objects are being a subject together. Now, I'm saying this, each object out of these 8 billion objective creatures, right, is first in their own subjective realm, and when they can see beyond their subjective realm, that's when wisdom begins. Wisdom is never, I have first, then others have. That's basic, like, you know, the view has to be, it's as if like, what does the creature, or I should even say it more mystically, what does the conscious being want? Or as Alan Watts in one of his talks, it was like next level, he was like, what do you desire? You know, and that sentence enough was enlightening for me, you know, that what do you desire? This is like the question of eons as far as the attention, the mystic's attention is concerned. So collective self-expressionism brings us to either 8 billion objects can maintain their subjects being a subject peacefully, or 8 billion subjects find a greater subject. And this doesn't mean per se an idealism. I thought about how can we unite the species but without a single subject that can have an agenda. And I realized the only way we can is that we make the updating, we make a verb into our ideal, not a noun. Any system of thought that is made a noun, its end result, I am telling you, they'd fail. It's only systems that make the verb the end result. That means as if they were like, imagine somebody was like, hey man, this advanced civilization you're saying, Mr. Within, in the future, you know, what's it gonna look like? How advanced is it gonna be? And I'll tell you, if you can ask the question, and by the time there's an answer, the civilization hasn't updated, it's not a advanced civilization. An advanced civilization is done with heaven and hell games. What I mean by that is that it's like, for how long does the person want to be pushed around by chaos and pushed and pulled by chaos and order? After some point, it's like the cadence of solar eyes. I don't know how to say it. It's like the soul roars and snaps out of its massive storification habit. Can you imagine in the future there's going to be a guru called the Shut Up Guru? And this guru's teaching is, everybody comes to him and says, hey, what's the teaching? And the guru's like, shut up, goddammit, shut up, all of you. And people are going to be like, why is this guru so rude? But then they realize this guru is literally pointing to that which can't be said with words. The advanced communicator, which leads to the advanced civilization, the individual responsibility that becomes the collective responsibility, is an airbender. Pretty much anybody who speaks, you're bending air right now. You know, it's like clap for your power. We have to wonder what is the best thing an individual can do. After the individual has done the best thing, we gotta wonder what's the best thing a collective can do. Okay, so after we've wondered what is the best thing a collective can do, we come to a point where we have to wonder, is it one or the other, or is it both? Right now, I will tell you, our species was at first, when you really go back, it was like lose-lose. We had nothing. You know how Drake in his music says we started from the bottom, now we're here. As an evolutionary biologist, the lyrics would be corrected. To be, we started from the bottom of the sea, now we're here. That means back in the day, there was no back in the day. We were just wild animals chasing food. It's like, yo, honor your ancestors, but there were wild animals. Still honor them. It's like, my ancestors were fish under the sea. How do I honor fish under the sea? It's like, I don't know, go and caress the ocean. So, when we started from the bottom of the sea, that was a lose-lose situation. Then we've still lost, self is lost, the world is lost. Now we've reached a time where I would say in 2020, self has won, but the world hasn't won. That means we've experienced win-lose, then lose-win. We haven't, so it's kind of like we've experienced lose-lose, then lose-win, then win-lose. We haven't experienced win-win. We are not experiencing an advanced civilization that is winning. You know? I remember there was this thing where in one of the talks I was like, if Darwin was here right now, he'd be Darwinning. It was during the whole machine craze. Anyways, win-win system. It has to come, it's the best backup system. The best kind of civilization we can realistically have, the best kind of collective self-expressionism we can have is really a world that our mistakes are recycled. That means the collective wins whatever we do, but we can win or lose. Now, when I say the collective wins, that means technically the person can't lose, right? That means imagine in the future, there's not going to be any winners or losers. What is this primitive, archaic, wagon kind of way of thinking of life? You know, in the future, they're going to be like, oh my God, back in the day, people believed they were winners and losers. They didn't realize they were all energy. Each heart brings with itself a familiarity. That means nobody is a stranger to being. They may be a stranger to how they arise as a doer in the moment. For me, when Shakespeare said to be or not to be, he tapped to the glitch in the simulation of human life. He realized either we are being, and if we are being, we're being. That's it. The moment we're being, but the moment energy and attention is being, that is like a supremacy attained. just a mere observance and contentment with that. Now, to build up to the idea of transplanetary souls, what I mean by that. So far the audience should have a picture that the human being starts in its inner realms, and then the purpose is to see the actual world that's here. Wisdom seems to be defined by ancients, I would say, as to see things as they are. To see things as they are, and ignorance was to see things as you are only. Eventually the multidimensional will come. So what it means is, after individuals have experienced enough individualism, they will care for their life force and its expression as a collective. This is natural. I'm telling you, it's like, you can't be a human being and not be fascinated with the human being. For me, it's just hilarious sometimes when I see that there's, especially with younger audiences, like younger people on this planet, that it's as if they have a gullibility factor, and that gullibility factor makes them pay attention to the lives of others more than their own life. As if they open their eyes and they're like, I'm here to meet people and to see a new world. But it's as if, when will the person ask, what if you're here to meet yourself for the first time? Sometimes when I live in the day, pretty much I'm alive in the day, I'm like, okay, this is also a moment I have never seen. Because when a person assumes they know themselves, they don't evolve. That's the danger of a belief, and that's also the danger of a disbelief. Because a disbelief is a belief on a belief, so technically it's in the same song. Same quicksand, Right now, we have a static analysis. What I mean by that, like a snapshot. We're taking a snapshot of the person, and we're taking a snapshot of the civilization. We're complaining, oh man, why is it like this? Things need to change, But I'm telling you, the first thing is first discovering the frame, like a film, how a film is made of frames, discovering frames of your being, and also the film of the doer. That means it's as if the person is trying to understand themselves in a static state where there's no movement. You're trying to see what kind of intelligence you are when there's nothing moving, and what kind of intelligence you are where everything is moving. So we are like drops right now, each evaporating and kind of wasting I don't want to say wasting, but if a person doesn't care for the whole system, you're technically wasting your time. So we have a static analysis of the individual in society. We have an analysis of the dynamism of an individual being mobile in the space-time continuum. Then we have an analysis of an individual in I would say a static collective and a static and a dynamic collective vision. What that means is, because we're treating ourselves as a character in a story, we need to have civilization be in a character in a greater story to be inspired to build it. However, upon understanding that energy doesn't die, fear may eradicate from the species soon. That means it's as if the species is going to be like, okay, till the end of time there's going to be events and any sort of disaster or whatever happening. It's like, are we going to freak out about everything? Or is the human being going to find strategies to overcome a singular problem through a multidimensional foresight? So I'm saying that it's as if people should not only trust themselves when they are not moving in moments of stillness, they should trust themselves in like very intense moments of individual movement, but then the person should trust their individualism with the collective in a still way. That means a human being should have an ability to just be still in this world and take it all in and be like, okay, this is my civilization. You know? To be able to do that in a singular moment. We have pride for so many things. You know how many people I've seen in this lifetime show off? Show off like objects. That's like, you know, that's like showing off a candle. This world is caught in costume games. I would say right now it's like the species is 8 years old playing dress up or something. We're more focused on how things look, you know, and what does that mean specifically, you know, rather than realizing it's a play of elements. It's like endless cause and effect. Probabilities are happening all the moment, you know. And the interconnectivity of nature makes us fools the moment we think one part is the only part. That means imagine I'm like, my body is only my heart. And people are going to be like, what do you mean it's only your heart? I'm like, no, the heart is real, you know? You know, so the heart is the only thing. You know, it's like the whole body is the heart. The whole body's living just for the heart. And then we see, no, nature is multidimensional, singular, void, and infinite at the same time, beyond time. That's the poetry. That's the Morse code these stars in the sky are trying to say. Or I shouldn't say Morse, I should say like Braille. There's messages everywhere, you know. A person can look at like an object falling and being like, oh my God, something tragic is gonna happen. Then the person can suddenly notice a bird flying to a branch and be like, oh my God, something great is gonna happen. Endless animation of the individual. After some point, the individual's gonna be like, okay, what am I here for? I'm here for myself. After the individual reaches a certain level of maintaining the self, you serve the species. As Rabindranath Tagore says, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. That means as if the human being enters the system, fun. Yes, fun is the only thing, joy. Go to what makes you happy. Forget about the hassles in the outer realms. Excuse me. However, the pilot, which is attention experientially existing as if existence and experience are two sides of a coin that's endlessly spinning in the void, and we're calling that the story of our lives. The pilot will discover that in the inner realms, the pilot is the space before the phenomena animates. That means in front of our eyes, we're the object first, then the subject. Behind our eyes, we're the subject first, then the object. This means that the context is as real as the object. I feel it's a symmetry. Think about it. The human body is symmetrical. You look at your hands, they're symmetrical. There's like some symmetry in nature. There's so many random stuff in nature. You look at nature, a lot of random, geometrically meaningless stuff is happening. But when you look at the human biology and you just look at creaturehood, it's like, symmetry was definitely involved. Whether man, this creature, was designed, engineered, whatever, was seeded somehow, suddenly from the surface of the earth, like in a time lapse, we suddenly saw like creatures out of dirt emerging and building skyscrapers and flying out of the planet. Like how next level is that? We're dirt that is going off beyond the atmosphere. From the dreams of joy early on, we awaken that the true joy is service. Why? Because self-joy is temporary. Collective joy is eternal. That means, imagine Edison didn't share the light bulb with anyone, and when he passed away, the light bulb was destroyed and it wasn't shared, and nobody's had light bulbs, right? You see, Edison was, even though there is stories of him being a cruel person, but he was compassionate enough to share the technology that could advance the collective. To become a collective expression means we need to have the courage to experience a term I would say, which is very strange, but I feel it's appropriate in this context, collective beingism. That means we need to start studying how, if we are not an object at our core, what does it mean to be, what does it mean on a solar level, on a level of attention and the unknown witness, that when a bunch of beings are in the same moment. When two beings are in two different moments, yes, you can say two different souls to the moment. But when beings come into one moment, it's like, what is the karma? Whose karma is that in the moment, That means there is this thing where they say, be careful of the karma you walk into. That means if their friends driving home after let's say they've drank and they want to drive home and there's a drunk driver, the people in the car automatically are in the karma of the drunk driver. Just from a common sense, even observable, reasonable view, So there is something that we move as individuals, but to become collective opens up the mystery, and this is where the future philosophers need to assist, future advanced communicators need to assist in really, what does it mean to be a collective being? Because technically a group of people who have the same beliefs, the language is like a collective being. And they're all being moved by the collective being. That language is living through those people. We are individuals today, we are a collective tomorrow. Perhaps. Sorry guys, there's lyrics to this song, I'm gonna change it. one route is we become collective and the individualism gets dissolved. We become drops of water that become a river. It becomes more the fat to live as a collective mind than to become an individual. This is a possibility. And this is where collective self-expressionism may lead. It seems to be taking more routes of, it's a strange it's a crossroad. It's a crossroad where it's like, it's like that point where human beings are going to decide how okay they're going to be with clones, how okay they're going to be with cyberspace representations or android replicas of selfhood. So that's where collective self-expressionism for a materialistic species that has conditioned itself and that has washed its hands with technology for a while, it's going to may potentially experience. But now I want to take the reader's attention to the idea that let's go to the table of the theoretical physicist. There's an idea in physics which is very interesting and deserves attention. And this idea is the idea of the multiverse. Now, the multiverse, if you just even look at the word universe, uni means one, and verse, of course, it's as if like a statement, but so you can say the universe is one verse. A multiverse is multiple verses, and let's say a verse, realistically, what does it appear to the person? It appears as an inner event, as an inner landscape or image, or in part of a snippet of an inner film. Because behind our eyes there is an internal cinematic language, as I've called it. Now, in multiverse theory, or we can say even in parallel universe theory, right? What it is that we're seeing like, okay, I gotta share something before this actually. In mathematics, they notice there's our universe has a sort of a numerical value sequence, a proportion is attributed to it. This is the proportion you find in like the shape of your ear to the shape of sunflower seeds. It's just the geometry in nature and how it represents a sort of spiral emergence. Now that spiral emergence is in the numerical sequence, if I remember correctly, let me find it, the golden ratio they call it. I don't know if it's exactly the same number as Fibonacci, but yeah, I think it's Fibonacci's golden ratio. There we go. Yeah, there we go. And if I can tell the numerical value, there we go. It's called the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio. So the number is 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, and it goes on. And this is the sort of spiraling sequence found in nature. Now, in a sort of discussion, imagine between mathematicians were wondering that if this number was off by a little bit, it could totally imply a different way the universe expresses itself, or how growth happens through a numerical translation would be totally different, right? So it's as if it's like our planet is in a certain state. Imagine this, physically, just it's as if the ratios of how things are changed a little bit, there could be tragic outcomes for the planet. So through mathematics, a sort of language, of course, mathematics is a language. People should treat it as a language. It's a way of translating reality. So if the proportions were different, the world would be different. Now the idea of the parallel universe is a suggestion of the possibility of all the different ways the proportions to our universe could be, like the values, the geometry to our realm could be different. If we were to add the parallel universe theory to the cultural program, infused to those two ideas, that would mean that every person walking in the street to themselves, or in actuality, there's different parallel versions of what's happening. So think about it, in a parallel universe, you're combing your hair left in one universe, and in the second parallel universe, as if imagine there's infinite parallel universes, like the hollow infinity you find in a mirror. So in one parallel universe you combed your hair left, in one parallel universe you combed your hair right. Now just take it as this: in one parallel universe you imagine went to the bank, okay? In another parallel universe you went to the grocery store, okay? Now this implies that there are other parallel Earths where there is a civilization on. Now imagine the parallel universe theory wasn't just a micro change, just like you combing your hair left. Imagine it was a completely different universe. That means imagine like a circle, and every degree is a different color in the color spectrum. A different, you can say, frequency. A frequency of the reception of the center, the void center. So if in one of these parallel universes it wasn't the same as our universe, it could be the fact that we are either in one picture, or we are literally like it's a line and there's endless planes of realities that are spinning around us. That means this Earth could be in endlessly different dimensions, endless civilizations on it. That means we could all be just like how a bunch of people look at one work of art and it means something different to them. It could be that there's one rock in one Earth, but there is endless different, you can say, types of civilizations on this Earth as we speak. And I thought about this, like, is this idea really bizarre? And my first view was, of course it is. But the second idea was, wait a minute, this could explain all the different mythologies, all the different folklore of all the cultural programs active on the surface of this Earth. When we look at what culture is, it's behavior, right? And when we look at what behavior is, it's an attention alive to itself. When I look at my ancestors, every time I don't know something, I have something in common with my ancestors. It's as if that feeling of, it's like, can a person know enough in a system this big? Or is the point not just accumulation, maybe it's utility? That means if it's about utility, if it's too big to analyze, that means our chances of advancing civilization could be more if it's a performance. It's as if it's an opportunity. The microphone of consciousness is given once in this form. And the fascination to know what's going on surpasses any way the intelligence can translate suffering. That means the person can be like, oh man, I'm suffering, why is this suffering happening? But at the same time, the person can be like, why is the universe happening? And immediately they come to the unknown. You know, and I will tell you, those people who have strong inner character, those people who are truly fearless, not just in voice, in reality. They have greater contentment with the void and the unknown. There's nothing to lose when you don't even know what we have as a being. We don't know what we are yet. Right? We are living in the coolest time. People don't realize if they just put an effort to explore what life is through the lens that their DNA is. You know, everybody is like, think of it as if we're 8 billion, like the X-Men. 8 billion human beings with powers we don't know and we can't control yet. But the thing is, these powers are on a genetically micro level. Everybody has different DNA, right? So it means that once the being emerges or goes into the modal in a certain trains in a certain mode, right, their uniqueness finds them, right? That means the most important thing in this life, and it's the easiest thing, is to be not yourself, be the self. Which means be the presence of the moment where all senses of self have come and gone. Do you know how many versions of myself I have watched come and go from the beginning of my lifetime till now? You know how many different ways I have felt about my own existence, how many ways I've thought about my own existence. After some point you're like, okay, it can't be just the thought and the emotions. There's something more here going on. And that's where life is not a linguistic based purpose where you wrote something lovely in a book. You know? Life is about the actual efficiency of really what would it look like, the advancement of a civilization where the species can't lose. You know what it would mean? It would mean that we have created such a self-sustaining backup system of a civilization that we can be fools again. We're trying to build the most advanced civilization so it's easy for everybody to be a fool because the advanced civilization takes care of your blind spots. People have to put their attention on what they want, not on what they don't want. You know? That means a person could want a better life, but they're like, I don't know if I deserve it. I don't know if I can. I don't know if nature's going to allow me. I don't know if I should. You know, all of these are language. After some point, the roar of the soul comes in and says to the mind, make a decision or get out of the battlefield. And the mind makes a choice, an earnest choice. And that's where I would say I would tell you, there's a strength that like you cultivate in the outer realms, whether it's through your communication, whether it's through you're going to the gym and lifting weights, you know. So there's an outer strength, or you can say the audacity to even discriminate is a sort of fearlessness. To love can be even said is a fearless thing. You know, only the fearless can love those who are afraid they can't even love themselves to love the other. Love is the game of the fearless. The implementation of the cultural program means that not only were there ever from the beginning different ways culture could have happened and everything could have happened, it's that now that it has happened, we shouldn't act like we don't know the multidimensional is around. Our language is multidimensional. When you go look at the dictionary, there's literally words, and a word has a bunch of meanings, right, based on how you use it. To a point where I was like, okay, language is definitely paint. You know, you can just use this paint and do whatever brush stroke you want with it. You know? If there are other civilizations here, and we are becoming more multidimensional, as is evident from evolution. Evolution's pretty much making a creature notice more dimensions to itself, therefore rendering it multidimensional naturally. So let's say on this earth right now, there's a bunch of ideas I want to get out at the same time. Let me see if I can do it. On this earth, we have the view we're one humanity. If our time is not bound to a linear, it's not enslaved by linearity, it could mean that we are multidimensional beings, which technically, oh man, how do I say? I'm saying in one universe, civilization isn't updated. In another universe, let's say human beings, their skin color is like blue. Okay, their same human faces, the human beings even in that dimension wear watches, and their civilization is, let's say, advanced, right? I'm just saying that it could be because we only see ourselves, we are under the impression that we are the only ones in the room. Right? But we're also under the impression this is the only room. It could be that this is one room among many rooms. Now I'm suggesting that all these many rooms, just like think of how many senses of self a person has had through the lifetime, right? Through their journey in life, right? So many different, every environment you go, your personality animates in accordance to a response to the environment in a different way. If a person sat down and stopped identifying with one view of the world, they may find that there's many views simultaneously. Shamanism was an oscillation, literally from between the center of a circle and its circumference, and like moving around like a wheel. As we become more multidimensional, everything we see can find meaning in multiple ways. That means the key to knowledge is not just holding. It's not like getting a book and putting it in a backpack. It's how it's changing one general picture. That means if the human being was like, what's going on here in this world? You know? And that was the one question. Imagine your whole life, you're trying to answer one question. Everything, because you're trying to answer one ultimate question, every question you see on the way fits into that ultimate question. So you never forget, because everything is trying to help the ultimate search. It's like that saying, when you aim for the moon, you land in the stars. Astronomers may be like, that joke's inaccurate, but you know, it's sorry, that saying is inaccurate, but it's saying. I mean, what can I say? If we're multidimensional, it could mean that just like our mind exists to our body in different ways, it could be that the mind of the planet exists to itself in different ways. It could be that the planet exists in a mind in different ways, right? The mystery is it can be moved in so many ways. It's as if a light hits a diamond and it's like, or a light goes into a room of a hall of mirrors and it's like ching, 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 ching. It's hitting everything and going off. It's like we can't, after some point we're like, okay, we can't follow it, you know. Some systems become multidimensional, and the thing about nature is that you know how a multidimensional, think of it this way, a being with an ego, with a singular dimensional ego, the being shows off in one dimension. A multidimensional being with an ego tries to put the extreme, okay? But the idea is that for the multidimensional, the wisdom is that you are only multidimensional because you still see the individual. You are only individual because you see the multidimensional. Eventually there will come a time where nature, like a seed, sprouts from the soil of its own creation. You see, it's like on some level, it doesn't matter if the person was made by God, or the person was just an energetic development only, without any animate qualities ascribed to it, animate personalized qualities ascribed to it. It's as if whatever is happening is like the person's like, now I'm alive. Now is the performance. Every moment is a performance of a lifetime lived. This is what I would say transplanetary, the different ways the planet could be being used by other dimensions. Right? And it could be that we have access, and it could be that interdimensionality, it's as if what we don't realize is there has never been angels and demons. There's just been a spiral of various ways one moment is being responded to, or one energetic moment. You know, that means I would say there are creatures that they don't even live. I would just say as a hypothetical thing, of course, but I would say that it could be fathomed that there are creatures that are not even bodies, like energy that comes closer to energy. Just like you have, for example, I don't know, some fish that tag along around bigger fish, you know. There's sometimes like energy that follows the moment, right? Some moments already have energy, like anybody who wants to study the inner realms, I would tell you, you gotta also get acquainted with Aikido. Because in Aikido, you use energy that is not yours. Technically, you're riding the wave of the moment. The person, the madman is running at you, and the Aikido master is like, okay, this guy doesn't realize he's running at me at a really fast speed. I'm just going to grab him and spin, and he's going to use his own momentum. He's going to slam him to the ground. Gravity is going to beat him. Do you know what I mean? So that's like, the Aikido guy is literally like, you know, spinning, you know, using momentum, using centrifugal techniques to like destroy the ball. It's as if anyways, I'll carry on. The world has become a strange place, meaning that we are realizing that it's been strange from the beginning. Human effort can be managed in multiple ways. You can say you can live on this planet as a creature. Simply you can pay attention to your biological existence, and technically your spirit guide becomes your own body. Your body becomes your guide, you know, poetically speaking. You can say there is modes of being where the person can get tired of being an I thought, and then they can let go. Letting go is always the easiest thing. That means it's as if in people should, in any sort of relationship they are in breaking, in how the relationship ends, they should at the end of the relationship wonder who had the stronger character. And not the stronger character as if emotionless like a statue. I mean, which cared the most in the relationship, you know, which was human the most. Because in this world, I would say relationships develop artificially in these modern times, and because they develop artificially, their result is artificial. But if the relationships developed real, that reality would surpass. That would literally mean human beings will not try to look for a perfect system when it comes to relationships. They would in some sense see it as just a I would say it's as if like two moments. It's like two eyes that see the same. Vision is the aim. Vision. That means it's as if energy should be advancing in every moment. I feel like even, I mean, of course, this is my personal view, and I don't have kids, but I would tell you one thing is it's as if the person wants to see how much energy cares for its own advancement. Now, the person has to, of course, be free, like as if we don't disturb the future with the past, but at the same time, we ask the future to look at the past. The word spirituality, I feel in 20 years is going to become archaic. It's not going to make sense. And what's going to happen is we're going to realize the most spiritual thing that is happening for atoms is their communication. Communication is unknown, and it is the mystery of life force, the greatest mystery of life force, the hard problem of consciousness, why we're even conscious of this phenomenology. Why didn't we evolve in a way where we could shut off our pain? You know, why did we evolve to even experience pain? Like these are questions that once the mind engages, the mind can't ignore itself anymore, and the mind that ignores itself finds power but doesn't know the power's truth. That means there's some people that are so obsessive to use power that they don't even wonder about what power means before using the power. Right? And then it's as if like I don't know, the white blood cells of the multidimensional universe come and take care of the wound. To move beyond language, that means when Mr. Within says advance beyond the language threshold, and you were never a thought, because the thought comes and goes. We can't be a thought if we endlessly have thoughts. That means if a person says, who are you? You give an answer, and then the person says, who are you? And you give another answer. You were neither of the answers, so we've never been our thoughts. We have let what is outside of us to only contain us, rather than what is inside of us to contain what is outside. Just attention eventually will go to a point where multidimensionality will be as normal as being singular. When communication is seen as the world picture, world film, everything is being communicated. You can say human the possibility for human life is the communication of the laws of nature. Whatever dogma we ascribe to it. Realistically, I think what can a human being communicate with? A human being can communicate with others in the world. A human being can communicate with themselves, which we call thinking. Self-communication is thinking. But thinking, that word is hollow as well. That means only thinkings are busy thinking. The human being can communicate with the whole moment, which transcends even the idea of a self and transcends like a point of reference of self and a point of reference of other. That means, like, imagine as I'm speaking to you right now, my mind is like a giant sphere around me. Okay, and so this sphere is the whole moment. It's my awareness in the whole moment. And this whole moment can become more real than what's in it. And when the whole moment becomes real than what's in it, literally there can be no bias. That means before the person was even wondering, am I non-dual or dual, there was no self even there. That's the power of silence, the inner silence, when that finds you. Any being, the inner silence finds them, that means suddenly they find a moment where they're just pure silence. As if it's nature's moment. You know, as if they, you know, that pure silent moment is literally getting a briefing from nature. It's like a solar briefing. What? A human being can communicate to space, believe it or not. What does that mean? It's kind of like a message in a bottle ordeal. We can communicate to space. It doesn't mean space is going to communicate back. So somewhere between self-communication, other communication, and whole moment being a communication, you know, there's an inseparability found, you know? And that inseparability of everything being just the presence of a whole moment of being really releases the person from, dare I say, karma. You become free of karma when there's no self to have a karma. That means you become selfless. That means really if there's karmic turbulence, the pilot should navigate the attention in the moment, should pilot selflessly. But if there is something, because you see, people treat karma as if it's theirs. That means, what if something happened and the person was like, how do you know that was because of you? What if it was the karma of the planet? You were just there. That means it's like when a person is like, let's say, like those people in Pompeii, you know, was it the person's karma that lava was coming down, you know, and it was raining at the same time? Can you imagine the person at Pompeii, like before the lava and the explosion, the person's like, God, universe. I mean, the person should probably be like, gods, you know, the gods in Olympus, you know, why am I here? What am I doing here? You know, give me a sign. Excuse me. The person says, give me a sign, you know, and then the volcano erupts and the person's like, okay, I got the sign, thanks. You know, the person runs. You see, nature is revelation. It's like I would say shamans are just nature readers. There's some people who I would say they come with this, it's like they already have this. Where it's not that when I say reading nature, it means the observer has so much trust that the moment has embraced the observer. Then shamanic stuff happens. Selflessly. You know, it's hilarious. We created time, and then we're waiting for salvation. It's incredible, no? The human beings, we were silent creatures. That means before language worship, there was object worship. Before idea worship, there was object worship. So people were like, yo, this object in front of me I'm pretty sure this is the ultimate truth of everything. You know, and then somebody was like, no, man, that's not it. The person's like, okay, so if this object isn't the truth, what else is the truth? The person was like, yeah, this subject that came out of nowhere. What I'm trying to say is that we are more multidimensional than our beliefs. And there's many ways that the realm communicates to us and we communicate to the realm. There's states of being where you can be the communication of the world. I feel in the long picture of human evolution, we're going to become a conscious world. Right? The only thing missing from civilization is just recognizing they're just different scales. People, it's as if our brains are like Ferraris, 4.5 billion year old Ferraris, and we're just driving them at 10 miles per hour. It's a waste of human life. The human life, this brain has the potential to contribute incredibly. Its activities don't have to only be in the outer realms. Now, the challenge of our lifetime as people alive in 2020, as advanced communicators of this era, is to try to balance these. And it's a struggle because I can see that a person's attention can go to the outer realms and endlessly you can run after things in the outer realm. And also when it comes to inner realms and a subjective inquiry into the nature of how are even ideas in here and what is this language that these creatures are being programmed through. When a person gets towards that position, after some point, it's like eventually inseparability will be noticed between the individual and collective. So when that moment happens, that means it's as simple as saying like energy cannot be created or destroyed. It changes from one form to another, and we say there is one form of energy is its potential and another form is the kinetic energy, right? Potential energy turns to kinetic energy. So we can say that in some sense the soul is the potential energy which is endless, and the kinetic energy is limited, right? Because if energy can't be created or destroyed, that means energy has never left the room. That means energy is another way of saying soul. It's a synonym for soul energy. changing from form to form is the reincarnation. It's witnessing of the whole thing is how there's one energy, you know. So if we have various ways we can communicate, we can say there's also different dimensions of communication. That means right now I'm an object generating sound, and to share subjects that only are in my inner realms, and I'm sharing it, and then people can notice what's going on behind my eyes. But the thing is, like, there are ways, I would say, where Rumi said it best. He said, be living poetry. That means he was like, don't just write poetry. Have every moment be like it's alive and you know. Like, look at this sky, look at this wallpaper. We're so casually like, yeah, that's our sky, but what is the sky? You know, is the sky just 3 letters, or is it more? Than any sort of symbolic system could imply. It's a giant mystery. That means what has happened is that the mystery has been denied, not denied, has been pointed away from. Anytime it's like the unknown is really, it heals. You know, that means a person could go through something intense, and then they're going to, at the end of it, be like, how do I feel about this? And they're going to be like, okay, at the end of it, I'm going to an unknown place, so it's unknown. I don't know how I feel, you know? So the unknown is the ultimate source of energy. That means knowledge needs the unknown to move, to be known. In Sufism, there's a very unique statement they go by, and it's an unauthenticated hadith. And so what is it? It's in the statement, it says God was unknown. Let me read it. Let me actually find it and read the actual thing. Hang in there, folks. I'm looking for this. Oh, here. So it says, I was a hidden treasure. This is like the creator of the universe saying it. I was a hidden treasure, like from that viewpoint. I was a hidden treasure and I wanted to be known. So I created the creation and made myself known, and they recognized me. So that's the thing, that it was like an unknown space of intelligence that wanted to know itself through a format. As it became the format animated to a point where it could recognize the unknown intelligence. That synchronization between the unknown intelligence and the known format can lead to the human life being inspired by planetary visions, can be inspired by just whatever space your mind provides for the new way it's going to move. You know, that means it's like, imagine a martial artist training in the forest, and the martial artist turns around and he doesn't realize, and his hand hits like a tree and his hand's like hurting him. right? So it's as if the person has to make sure there's the proper space before they engage in whatever they do. So I would say it's the same thing with exploration, that we wonder about what do we know about the space we're being in and we're moving in, you know, and what do we know about what we see. Like the senses are like soldiers reporting back. It's like, yes sir, this is what I found, you know, like being poetic here, but like so the senses are reporting to the general, which is the free will, right? All the cells in the body of the person, they're like an army of atoms assisting the free will. They're at your service. But that your is also them. So it's as if the king is the kingdom. If the kingdom gets destroyed, there's no king. You know? So that means it's as if it's an honor of the way not an individual is standing, but a collective is standing. In a sense. What we need is to start a renaissance. Every person who has been drawn to go and communicate, like in cyberspace or outside of cyberspace or whatever, in whatever way, the idea is we were creatures that for a long time were in complete silence. 250,000 years we've got this game of speech going again, right? So this is left to advancement somehow. That means it's as if like, what else can we do on a rock in the middle of nowhere? That means it's like, you know that saying, live or die trying? It's like wrong. It's like living is dying, and dying is living, in a way. That means they're so codependent that it's as if the person can't even know they're dead until their life is fully done. Do you know what I mean? It's like you can't know the roller coaster ride till then. And just the multidimensionality that may come in the future, it's just people are going to realize we're branding the earth. It's like, what happens when objects evolve into subjects to themselves? They start naming everything. Kind of like those talk shows where all the people in the audience, they all get a prize, and the host is like, you get a prize, and you get a prize, and you get a prize. And it's as if we as human beings, like when we evolved, we were like, okay, you get a name, that gets a name, this object gets a name, this gets a name, you know, I don't know what that creature is, but that gets a name, you know, you know, that creature has big feet, that gets a name. You know? So it's as if we started naming everything, therefore slowly, literally it was like an explosion of an alien technology all over nature. Things began becoming subjects. Like, I keep re-emphasizing this, guys, but this is what we are. We're left to this. Conditional form life forms, we're going to become unconditional life forms. Probably unconditional life force, not even form anymore. That means it's as if when the person, it's as if they're, I mean, of course, this is a view I have personally, but there's some moments in my life where there's things happening beyond my will, like I can't do anything about it, they're just happening. And in those moments, I just go to an honest resonance, and I'm like, okay, I can't do anything, then I'm going to watch what happens. I'm going to see, I'm going to learn from those who, it's as if like the person starts learning from what they can't do anything about. Something where most people, they run away from the inevitable. They're like, oh no, it's going to end. You know, let me endlessly try to begin. You know, it's like, really, no. It's like the way you walk suggests how the ending was, you know. And people can walk gently at any moment, you know. whether it's in the inner realms, outer realms. And of course, guys, this is like, what I'm saying is just sounds. Like, I'm just saying, I'm just trying to paint a picture. Reality is so much more multidimensional. And that's the cool thing about it. Sometimes I think if we knew everything, there would be no point to do anything. That means you can see this. Sometimes misery comes when you glorify to yourself. Right? When you think you're the center of the universe. I'm telling you, the center of the universe can't be a person. That's the secret to humility. You're like, okay, this system's too big for me to try to own, whether even ideologically. It just becomes something where you just start living with the world while you're alive, right? And the system becomes efficient. And because we're natural, like, I noticed, like, when you look at animals, when they eat food, animals smell the food. Right? But you don't see people in restaurants like putting their noses like on the table and like sniffing the food to see if it's like proper food or you know. So we have built a humanity that is actually not reliant on a lot of its primitive senses. It's as if the you know, the eyes became the boss and all the other senses had to listen, and the ears were like fighting it out with the eyes, you know. The auditory sense was trying to overrule the visual sense, let's say. Or bypass. I'm just saying, like, this world is left for exploration. That means this is the biggest loss. That if a human being is a completely new invention of nature, never before existed on this planet, and they don't explore, they don't do anything. And when I say don't do anything, this doesn't mean just run into the cultural program or you know, the battlegrounds of currency. I'm just saying, like, in life there's energy. Energy can be directed, and energy, if not directed, pretty much it's as if you're like you're either sitting at the front of the roller coaster or you're somewhere in the middle, or you're in the back. You don't even know what's going on. You're just seeing how things are ending, you know. Anybody who just cares for the advancement of civilization, it's like the way of saying, like, how do you climb the mountain? You start at the top. In Zen, they would say this. You start at the top. How do you get enlightened? The answer is similar. You know, I saw this picture. In this picture, it was a sci-fi picture, some next level illustrator, digital art illustrator had done. And in the picture, it was a girl who had her hands on this glass, but this glass was from a space station and it was away from Earth. And I thought, wow, right now we are like suffering on our Earth, but can you imagine someone being away from their planet for some time, then eventually being like, I don't know who I am anymore in this empty space. You know, literally like the astronauts in empty space. You know, so so the astronauts, so it's one of those things that because we're so close to civilization, we don't see its value. But I'm telling you, if a person who's been raised in civilization and has been engaged with that level of speed of reality, suddenly they go into nature, they will feel, I mean, it's true, after any time, wherever you are, the environment sculpts you, you know. There was this saying, I don't know, it was from one of these, you know, I would say business gurus like Napoleon Hill or Brian Tracy, one of these you could say, clear thinkers. And the known is endlessly going to the unknown. I don't know what I can say after. The known has nowhere to go. Where can knowledge go? It goes back into the unknown. Where does the unknown go? It becomes known. We're oscillating, right? So it's as if we're either the world is way multidimensional and we don't know what's going on yet, and we even say sight is a certain electromagnetic it's like a certain frequency in the light spectrum. Certain range of perception. We say there is the observable universe, we say there's the unobservable universe. Now the only question has to be, is there animate intelligence? Is there life not only on other planets, is there life in the unobservable? Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Really, the aim of this episode was to say that through us becoming multidimensional, it means duality, literally like a player in the bench, a player in the game tired, like in a basketball game, is being asked to go sit on the bench, and multidimensionalism and ideas closer to infinite speed are coming, right? I feel we have two options. We either slow down civilization, press the brakes, we renounce our material desires and go live like, I don't know, Tarzan's future self or something, if he never left the jungle, or we or we in some sense, I don't know, whatever use we can be, we serve the civilization before our eyes close. What greater joy than to see the world at least turn efficiently? We can't control how it turns, but we can control its efficiency. That means the person, literally, like history for me, I'll tell you, it's like, let me tell you what it's like. It's like those glass bowls where a bunch of pieces of paper with different names or numbers are written, and suddenly a person takes one of them. That means it's like man doesn't choose what echoes into the future, nature does. If nature finds a utility in the work, it will carry it on forth. If nature doesn't see a utility, then it gets dismissed naturally. Anyways, let us not chase freedom the whole time. Let us be free while we have time. Anyways, namaste.